Well, everyone, welcome back to the news where actually there's a story that we cocked up, and it seems just about all of games media also cocked it up. So we must uncock this situation by talking about Once Lost Games and the Wayward Realms, where basically we dare to hope, and was that a mistake? Let's get into the situation. Okay, Wayward Realms. Basically, spiritual successor to Daggerfall is what it's being billed as, and that is a thing that seems extremely fun and exciting. But there's a little bit to get into. Okay, so let's get into this. This is by a company called Once Lost Games, and if you go with all of the headlines and titles surrounding this, it is that Axe Elder Scrolls developers have announced the Wayward Realms, which is a grand single-player RPG. Now, Once Lost Games is an indie studio founded in 2019. The founders are Julian Lefay, who's the technical director and widely considered to be the father of the Elder Scrolls, one of the original 4 Bethesda Softworks employees. There's Ted Peterson, design director, who was one of the lead designers and writers on the original Elder Scrolls series, a designer on Arena and Daggerfall, and a writer on Morrowind and Oblivion. There's also Vijay Lashman, I think, apologies if I've mispronounced his name. Executive producer. This is all, by the way, as of 2019, the company's founding. He was one of the main creators of the Elder Scrolls, credited across more than 80 games, from Spyro to Lord of the Rings Online. Big, broad career that guy's had. And then also Ian Phoenix, marketing director. He runs the YouTube channel Indigo Gaming that focuses on documentary-style content. But he's also not at the company anymore. He departed. It seems like there, some drama, some stuff. Certainly that once you know it, makes you look at all of the recent coverage, including our own, and think, oh dear, is there more to this story? Some more due diligence should have been done. We'll talk about what this project is first. So this is a new project as of 2019, an open-world fantasy RPG intended to be a sequel, sort of sequel, spiritual successor to Daggerfall, and Julian Lefay actually mentioned wanting to do a pseudo-follow-up to Daggerfall in a 2017 Reddit AMA. So we then look at the teaser trailer. Now, this is all part of the, sort of hype, sort of development cycle of the game. They're now at the stage where they've put together this CG trailer, or not CG. Basically, I think this is in Unreal. It's not gameplay, so basically just the camera moving through a scene. Right, so that's the way to put it. It's a pretty simple stuff, in all honesty. But we can go through it, and, initially we just have this shot, and I know where I'm going with this, where, forest, mystery, big think, right, sort of teasing a bit of their world, their vibe. But this is the shot that I really want to focus on. Big. Very big. And then when I looked at especially these assets here, those ones, they very much, they totally look like Megascan things, which I thought was interesting. Now, to talk about what this game actually is supposed to be, well, basically, grand open world fantasy RPG. To me, it sounds a bit like you have big Daggerfall-like game, but with a bit of Mountain Blade or even a Crusader Kingsy vibe going on top of the world that you're playing in. We can really get into that a bit more when we talk about the Steam page. So, for the Steam page, under the direction of Ted Peterson and Julian Lefay, lead developers on the team behind the original Elder Scrolls, Arena, and Daggerfall, Once Lost Games is creating a new open-world fantasy RPG where choice and consequence are experienced on a scale never attempted before. So it's set in a group of over 100 realistically scaled islands that are known as the Archipelago, where scores of factions are vying for influence and power. Kingdoms strive to maintain their dominance, upstarts seek to earn a place at the top, dynasties set generational plots into motion, and should the player earn a position of prominence, they can shape the course of history. Of course, immediately I'm thinking about what I hear of people playing Crusader Kings, where they just have wacky hijinks happen because they, knock over a few dominoes in the right place. Or perhaps Mountain Blade, you and your little warband, you get strong, you join a faction, you win a few key battles for that faction, suddenly you've helped change the face of the map. So for their core features then, they have that it is a massive world. No, really! where they're saying that this is a game bigger than most that you can think of. Big cities with hundreds or thousands of NPCs. Deep, dark, dangerous forests, massive mountain ranges, sprawling swamps, marshlands, vast oceans, and more, brought to life through dynamic procedural generation. Of course, you will have known that from the second you heard Daggerfall. If you know about Daggerfall, that is, I suppose. Where Daggerfall, that's a game the size of the UK. I mean, obviously, the quantity of content is, not in keeping with that because it's procedural generation, but Daggerfall was an absolutely massive game, at least in that technical sense, whereas this one seemingly also wants to be. Now, I'd say procedural generation, that can be used really well, and if we're making this massive world, and we do have these really big, cool cities, but then procedural generation is enough that these actually feel like real places, and then you have got those dynamic systems rolling on top of that, then I actually do start to get very excited, very interested. They say there's a constantly evolving experience and story with a virtual game master that just keeps things interesting so the two players don't have the same game experience. I mean, even if you've played, say, RimWorld, you play you can choose the different game masters, basically, and that will change up how your game is. So if they do have some sort of virtual game master system, think about the cool things that could happen. I mean, in my head, the ultimate promise of this is, imagine there's a game of Crusader Kings going on, but you're just like a dude in the world. I think if that is a core fantasy that they're selling, it's obviously a pretty compelling one, at least to a player like me who is interested in being a small part of a complex system and seeing what emerges from that. They talk then about real role-playing where you don't have a prescribed class, and there being a world full of lore, with the lore being a little bit, you sort of dig deep and you'll find a lot of crazy stuff. Now, in our original video, which we have since deleted, because after it was brought to our attention, we felt like the video no longer was appropriate to be live, there could be more here. There could be more here, and it's sadly not good news, because to be honest with you with this, usually I'd see a game like this with this scope and I think, oh, I don't know if I trust that. But I looked at the founding team and it looked like experienced developers leveraging modern tech. I looked at their graphics and I thought, okay, so procedural generation for terrain, this is absolutely a known quantity that can be done really well. Even current Elder Scrolls or, creation engine games, they use procedural generation tools to help build out the world. There's many games that can do this stuff really, really, really well. It's being done by a bunch of vets, who are credited and incredible games that really push the industry forward. Okay, I guess if somebody was to do something interesting here, maybe it is them. And then we have to deal with this. How I almost made the game of my dreams. This is a post on Medium by Indigo Gaming, who was one of the founding members and marketing director of this game. Right, so we have a bit of a summary. We have some excerpts. Ian Phoenix, who was the marketing director when the studio was founded in 2019, actually left amidst what looked like severe production issues. In the post, Phoenix went into details on their journey and how after 18 months of work, there is very little to show. Once Lost Games and the Wayward Realms are back in the news because of this trailer getting buzz, but the thing is that Phoenix's article does exist, basically wasn't that picked up on by a lot of the press, including ourselves, which is our bad. But his article speaks to a very uncertain, unproductive, uncommunicative develop environment that was full of unrealistic goals and undefined priorities. And hearing this is worrying to me in the context specifically of this trailer, because that trailer, very impressive looking, but also very easy to put together. Very easy to put that together. Just to do a few camera pulls. That's not hard. That's one of those reasons why, people see a Kickstarter trailer and think, oh, wow, this thing looks great. And then they, buy the thing. They're like, hey, but that looked great like 4 years ago. Why isn't it done yet? It's because making a trailer like that is deceptively easy to do. Not that I'm saying that they're being dishonest or anything with that trailer. Like, it is pretty much standard practice, but you guys know what I mean. So judging by the write-up here, development on this game is either significantly back on track very recently and there has been some change with the team, or that this is a premature announcement and maybe something we shouldn't get excited about. And just to do some excerpts here, I mean, anytime you see somebody say, never meet your heroes, especially doing a bit of background, he's big Elder Scrolls guy. I mean, massive documentary he did on the Elder Scrolls franchise. So for him to say never meet your heroes is absolutely a sad thing. Meeting your teenage idols, then working on a sequel to your favorite game from your teenage years was an experience I never imagined I'd have in my lifetime. But I can't stop thinking of the sad, cynical adage, never meet your heroes. After over 100 online meetings, a weekend flight to plan things in person, many hundreds of hours of work, and thousands of dollars of out-of-pocket expenses, I called it quits. Not good. To go into a few more of the choice excerpts. Then we all tag-teamed Julian. It took quite a while to reach him at first, as he had basically gone off the grid due to a job change. This would become a recurring thing throughout the time we worked with him. The first major problem with building the game was, of course, the logistics. Who had actually put their shoulder on the wheel, coding, drawing, animating, and building the game from the ground up? To this day, I don't have an answer to that question. Not good. It's very difficult to get top talent with a goose egg for a budget. Well, it does make me wonder, is this trailer and everything trying to solve budgetary issues? Trying to attract capital. We were still very lacking in the programmer department. Luckily, one of the founders had a few connections that seemed very promising at the time. Soon after, we got an email. This basically, to get into it, they get a few seemingly very high power, very, very worthwhile staff, and they basically mismanage them and lose them. And that's bad, because in a founding team for a game, I mean, people is everything. So soon after, we got an email of resignation from D, saying that he was reminded of a previous workplace, which was similarly demeaning to the political views that he held, and he felt oppressed and uncomfortable working with us anymore. I remember one line from the email that still sticks with me today: the world has gone mad. And from reading that, I believe that it was chats that were going on that Indigo wasn't fully seeing them. But whatever it was, the other people had created an environment where this person, labeled D here, felt they had to leave the team. And this is something Indigo thought was a great shame, because this was a very, very capable person that their team absolutely needed. But there's not just D, there's also S. After a meeting I was not available for, due to work, Ted, Julian, and S came to an agreement that we'd go ahead with Unity, as that was what S was most experienced in. There were many examples showing that Unity could handle big open-world games like this, and S would take on the bulk of the initial programming/development. And then nothing. Julian basically just showed up to meetings for a while, never proactively coordinated with S, didn't engineer a plan for the game's basics, and from what I heard, basically didn't attempt to work with S at all. This, along with our massive goals for a lifelike scale to the game, non-linear and dynamic storytelling, and an ambitious faction system which would see cities and regions rise and fall to warring kingdoms. It was too much with too little direction. S told Ted that he was out, that we just didn't have the planning and coordination to take on such an ambitious project. I thought, in the back of my mind, if we could muster up the plans and get our act together, that someday we could lure him back to eventually help with the project. That day never came. Going on after months of preparation, we still didn't have much to show for, and no strong leads for funding. Ouch. To another quote, it was a nice, rejuvenating boost for us to be focused in person and working together. But toward the evening, after we ate, work basically ceased, and idle chatter and watching game live streams ensued, as if we were done for the day. This was surprising to me, and I noticed that Stefan was visibly disappointed, as we only had a couple of days, really a day and a half for me, so every hour counted. Stefan had flown 4,000 miles to a town so small it didn't even have a Starbucks to work in this thing, and Julian was basically treating it as a day job he'd already clocked out of. Julian was uninterested in anything that wasn't the full RPG game we were planning to make, or at least a subdivision of that game. So while a mobile esports game is out of the question, a creative story-driven dungeon crawler that challenged the tropes of the genre was not out of the question. And this is basically a thing where, at a point, there were suggestions being brought up of, okay, could we do a smaller thing first? Sort of build up to the sort of big game. So with this, like, you've got a situation where basically they're trying to pull everything together, get their shit sorted, right? Do it in person. Bunch of money is spent in this. And the accusation here is that Julian just wasn't taking this shit seriously. Which, of course, is a worrying thing for anybody who now sees this trailer, gets excited for this game. You know, now we do have this document, which is certainly casting things into doubt. Now, moving on then to another excerpt, because this, I think, just characterizes the situation, and it's important for you guys to get a sense, at least of what this account is, of what was going on, before you get, like, super hyped and excited for this game. So the name Ted and I had been working on eventually came to a head as the Wayward Realms, a name that both Vijay and Julian both didn't really like, and as far as I know, still to this day never agreed on. Well, that of course ended up being the name of the game. But Vijay was clearly not focused on the project. He was very difficult to get a hold of. He would need to regularly cut calls short, and sometimes he'd just go off the radar for whatever reason. Julian would do this as well, especially after switching jobs or looking for new employment, which happened at least 3 times since I knew him. So it's this sort of thing. They're trying to do this in their spare time, and maybe there are reasonable reasons like why these guys are struggling, but certainly it does paint a bad picture. I mean, sometimes when there's a lot of career hopping going on, you have to wonder if there's a personnel issue. But the prospect of competing with games that would have over 10 times our budget was frankly ridiculous. We were goldfish trying to compete with megalodons, and any publisher worth their salt would know that is a losing battle. After that email, we had a bit of silence from a potential publisher, and they responded in an unusually short email. Basically, to sum up, they were no longer interested. We asked them if there was an opening for a repitch, and we didn't get an affirmative. We had scared them away. And that's basically, I believe, where one of the things that went on is it was let slip, like the sort of budget that they wanted. Not only was it a massive budget, but it also seemed very unrealistic compared to the budgets of games that they were actually trying to take on. So basically a situation of this shit does not seem realistic. I had seen only a single early bit of code, a family tree system, in the entire time I was with the project. I was programmed after hours over a single week in mid-2019. None of the other systems for storytelling, procedural generation, factions, or gameplay were ever started, let alone were close to prototyping. If I had to pinpoint the dire mistakes we made from the beginning, they would be: we severely underestimated how difficult it would be to raise funding based on a pitch alone. Absolutely, you almost certainly will need a compelling demo. We didn't have the collective commitment to build a basic prototype or demo of the game for investor/publisher interest while unfunded. It's the sort of thing, if you want to get that funding, you have to be able to put in the work to do that. You might just have to do that work for free, because that's what it's like to start a company. And, here he says, here I was working with several 20 to 30 plus year veterans in the gaming industry, and it felt like we had no idea what we were doing. What's worse, every step forward was met with criticism, devil's advocate arguments, or nagging debates that went on for weeks or even months. I could no longer stomach the poor communication, lackluster updates, and black hole-sized void of leadership and direction. Things that an ambitious, unfunded project like this needed in spades. I didn't even get a reply to his resignation from all the founders, which I was used to at this point, so it didn't shock me. Just all of these things that characterize that this maybe ain't the leadership team to bring a game like this to market, even if they did have strong pasts in the industry. Now, he does say if the folks at Once Lost Games succeed at making a fantastic Kickstarter project because they basically realized they needed a kickstart for funding, or get a game published and successful, I'll be the first in line with my money to support it. But after 18 months of development, I'm highly skeptical. Without some very strong leadership and attitude changes, I don't have faith that will happen. I sincerely hope they prove me wrong. And I agree with Indigo. I hope they prove him wrong, because if they do, it will mean we'll get a pretty damn cool game. But we do have to take this article seriously. Now, he responded to this by saying that, yeah, he was attached to this project, but left last year due to commitment issues among some of the founders and a lack of progress for a year and a half. They just released a cinematic trailer and got a second round of buzz. Now they've started a Steam page. Hopefully they worked things out. Hopefully indeed. Now that said, I believe they're actually doing this in Unreal Engine, not Unity.
That's interesting. That implies that they've got different people actually working on it than S was the one who was leading that development. So it implies that they have completely different staff on the go now. But it's a really grim story that comes across to me like it's almost textbook. A couple of people have an idea, but no one really has the time or effort to commit to it.
Yeah.
That's just that. But with people been strung along for ages and trying to use, I mean, not to say this in like an accusatory way of, they're intentionally doing this, but it seems like they got fairly far on their history and their credits, but the actual stuff wasn't there, which, there's any number of reasons, so it's hard to attribute malice or anything like that. It's just, this is a very promising idea, but ideas are relatively cheap, all things considered, versus what actually happens.
So it is so strange with the commitment issues. It's the sort of thing where, because we legit don't know why. We don't did these guys have personal problems going on, or is this just a case of you have a bunch of busy industry vets who are in a situation where they cannot spare a massive amount of time out of hours? It's just hard to know without more information. I'd say certainly that article in Medium, it does not suggest the best things for aspects of the professional character of some of these guys. Now that said, they are a lot more active. On Twitter, they confirmed that Unreal Engine is what they're going with now. So I guess there was another change from Unity that was mentioned in Indigo's article. They posted this screenshot. Apparently some of the distant stuff, like the little towns, are procedural generation going on. So it seems like they've got some prototypes. They are working on some things, and that certainly is good. It's just, it is all a little bit of a spanners thrown into the works, given that we've got reasons to doubt these founders now. Hard to say. It seems like, the company did this. They released a trailer that looks like a real trailer. They have screenshots that look like real screenshots. I mean, they are. They are. So you can see why everyone's just like, okay, cool. New game in Steam. Founders are pretty notable. All right, cool. Let's go into it. Let's talk about this. I suppose maybe regarding the Indigo thing, it's like, is that just drama? Is there some interpersonal drama between them? I mean, who knows? It's certainly from going through things. Doesn't seem like Indigo's going to have a major axe to grind against these guys. I mean, certainly doing it via a big Medium post is, pretty big public move that absolutely will have had a material negative impact on the comings and goings of Once Lost Games. We do, in fact, have a response, though, from Ted, right? Where there's quite a lot to go through here. Ian Phoenix said a lot of nice things about me as a writer, game designer, glue in the community, and a decent human being in his article in Medium. The feeling is mutual. One thing I regret, however, which is all on me, is when he left the project, he wrote a long email to the founders basically stating a lot of the reasons he gave in the article. I replied back with a quick email and basically said he deserved a longer response, but there was a lot to process. He was owed more than a thorough response, but I never... he was owed a more thorough response, but I never sent it to him. So basically, he totally dropped the ball in communications. What Ian wrote about the start of the project is true. It all started with him. He did the first interview with Julian, which caused me to reach out to both of them. Ian was really... he was man number one, right, in forming this company. However, there is a question of perspective, and anyone who has ever seen Kurosawa's Rashomon knows a perspective changes everything. My first game came out in 1993, and I've been credited with... I have to pull out my resume because mobygames.com doesn't list them all. About 25 games since then. And for every game that was published, there was at least one that never came out. I'm not going to bullshit that it's all been smooth sailing and that we won't face rough waters in the future. Some weeks it's going to feel like 2 steps backwards, 1 step sideways, but contrary to reports, we're not dead. We're going into this eyes wide open, aware of the fact there's a reason no one has done a real spiritual successor to Daggerfall, even with full financing at the start and the resources of an established company. It's fucking hard, so accept baby steps because that's progress. Last thing I want to clear up. In the article, Ian wrote that he didn't intend to make his frustrations public, but, quote, some of the newer contributors to the project have taken over community management and were spreading misinformation about my involvement in the project. No one who is handling community management is new to the project. We're 1 year on the Discord channel, and the guys have been there since nearly the very start. I don't know what was said, but it must have been misinterpreted because everyone here has nothing but respect for Ian and his early and enormous contributions to the Wayward Realms. So,
yeah, where does that leave us? That leaves us at almost like it's not exactly a he said, she said, because that implies that like there's actual one person saying one thing, someone saying something different. It seems like nothing Ian said has been disputed by Ted.
No.
Ted's just going, it's how it is. Like that's how it is. Not like it's a bunch of apologies for their actions or anything like that, and not specifically setting out how they're improving on it. Literally just going, Ian's a good guy. We're trying. We're trying. That's all we can do. And for context, this was 11 months ago, I think now.
Yeah.
This actual this response on Discord. So it's a case of, have they made enough progress in 11 months? Was Ian leaving even maybe a wake-up call to them? Like a kick in the ass to, boys, this project's going nowhere if you don't actually knuckle down and do it. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, obviously this is all public stuff. So there is the chance that they are all seething and hate each other under the water.
Yes, I know of numerous instances where, we're just leaving for some creative differences, but it's actually been fucking war in reality. So.
Yeah, so there's basically, to try to bring this back to the game and actually what it means for you as a consumer who might be interested in this game, in a Daggerfall 2 or whatever, a Daggerfall 8, whatever. I don't know how the Elder Scrolls lineage generally goes, but I guess, buyer beware.
Buyer beware, yeah. Don't pre-order. Follow, be interested, but don't pre-order.
Yeah, this is a lot of promise.
Not that they're asking for pre-orders.
Yeah, not yet anyway. I'm sure they'll do that once they have some game to show, because, I mean, I feel like asking for a pre-order based on a promise, even knowing what Ian said is out in the open, and then having that trailer, asking for Kickstarters on that would be really, really dangerous today, I think.
That actually is an interesting thing. That Medium post in a way, I don't want to say it totally precludes them from fan funding, but you could immediately see what would happen if they did launch a Kickstarter, and then, because all the press, I didn't see articles from, the people who are covering Wayward Realms mentioning this Medium post.
That's weird.
You can be damn sure that whenever that Kickstarter, like if it is a Kickstarter, if it did happen, that all of that drama would begin to surface.
Mm-hmm.
Which, who knows what responses that would prompt or if it would bring anything to air. But yeah, unfortunate situation. We sort of, you sort of take this at first glance. You think, oh, cool, look at that. You do a quick Google and like, oh, cool, here's the founding members. That all seems really good. Wow, and oh, shit, 2 years later, here they are. Trailer looks, pretty cool, I guess. Oh, look, they've got big ideas. Oh, wait, there's a Medium post that completely changes how we look at that 2 years. So, hopefully it's got better, but yeah, we just felt that it was important to redo this, do it properly, so that you guys can look at this with the critical eye that I think is needed.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's essentially that. Hopefully, a good game comes out of this. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I still fully believe in the idea behind it. I still fully believe that with a decent budget and the decent approach to using modern tools and modern tech, you can get very, very far. It's just a question of how much of it is these guys trading on their name and their past. How much are they equipped to actually do something that indies do nowadays? Only time will tell.
Only time will tell, and that's why we gotta wait. So, we'll see you in the next one. That's it for us. Bye.